Resolution 10-1054, authorizing submission of 14 grant applications to the Federal Transit Administration, FTA, and 1 grant application to the Federal Railroad Administration, FRA, for fiscal 2011 federal formula and discretionary funds. Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, the occasion upon which you see this omnibus resolution related to grant applications is, of course, the end of the federal fiscal year and the initiation of the next federal fiscal year. The note that I would make related to all of these grant applications is that it obviously depends upon Congress appropriating the funds. In all of the appropriation bills that are pending before Congress today, these funds will be available. We expect they'll be available. And so they are, in general terms, already authorized and underway. So what we are asking is for approval of all of these grant applications. They are really in 4 different categories I thought was useful to go through. One is that there's a whole series of grant applications that deal with receipts that are already obligated for bonds for debt service, and that, for example, was MTIP funds, Metro formula funds that were dedicated to the and we did some debt at an earlier stage of TriMet in order to fund the capital cost, and those grant receipts are dedicated to retiring that debt. So there's a category grant applications associated with that. And then there's a series of federal formula grants. They really come in 2 areas. One is 5307 preventive maintenance grants, and those are usually used for the bus system to help, and the rail system to help with what we call preventive maintenance, repair work, engine replacements, that sort of thing. So they help directly offset operating costs that we would otherwise have to bear. So it's very important for us, those formula funds, and continue to look at those levels is very important to us in the future. And then there's a series of really one-off grants for special opportunities, and there's a number of those described that include sort of, for example, the New Freedom Grant initiatives that help with a number of different things. We received STP funds for some bus shelters, again about $1.4 million over time. Milwaukee project final design costs of $10 million. So those are, again, designated grants that have gone through the regional process that are designated to the specific purposes that they're noted. This is where you sort of see the results of, if you will, TriMet's opportunism, which is that we do look very hard under every rock, under every federal program to try to take advantage of grant programs that can help benefit the transit system in the region. And then finally, there's a series of grants that really deal with pass-throughs. Again, because TriMet is a designated recipient of certain funds, other agencies aren't. For example, the City of Portland is not. And so if the city is undertaking a transit improvement project and they have a grant that they've been able to secure for that, the typical approach would be to partner with TriMet. So TriMet then administers the formal grant and passes through an intergovernmental agreement. And in the past, the board has seen some of those intergovernmental agreements as we've developed those pass-through arrangements one by one. So there's certainly finance staff is here to answer any questions about any particular item. Again, heavy load, but it does begin to sort of reflect the heavy workload that TriMet and staff has related to trying to keep these funds flowing for the region, for the benefit and sake of the region. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the General Manager?
One question. What's the risk of not getting these grants? Because they're already budgeted for, right? The receipts are already budgeted. Is it just a routine application?
I would say that for those grants that are here, the risk is very low that we would not receive them. The bigger risk is the timing, and so it usually requires the Congress to get its act together to be able to appropriate, if you will, these funds. Historically, that's always happened. Usually in a situation like this, there'll be what they call an Omnibus Appropriation Act, where they lump all the operating agencies require, all the appropriations required to keep the government operating, and these will be part of it.
Okay, thank you. you. We do have one audience member that requested time before the consideration of this resolution. As you know, we've adopted a policy of hearing from people on specific resolutions and ordinances prior to taking action on them. So, John Charles from the Cascade Policy Institute. John, welcome. John, before we start, we have an unprecedented number of people that wish to speak to address the board today. And to manage that, or to organize that effectively and give everybody a chance to make a presentation, we're asking that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, and we'll give you a little bit of a warning and just be as concise as you can. Thanks.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. I'll be less than 3 minutes. John Charles, Cascade Policy Institute. I am suggesting that you not take action on this measure today, because as I read the staff report, if I were in your shoes, feeling a sense of fiscal responsibility, I would not be able to decide what to do, because there is inadequate information here with regard to trade-offs. There's tiny little blurbs about each project, but if you look at the last little part of the handout, you can have a list here. Well, pass-through, that sounds kind of benign. You get the money, you pass it through a streetcar, it gets built. Well, it's not totally benign. You have agreed to pick up the majority of operating costs for the streetcar. So when the streetcar expands, you may take capital money and pass it through as it feels like there's no cost now. No, you've created one more little time bomb of just fiscal obligations over time. Milwaukee Light Rail. Okay, you're going to float revenue bonds in the future with liens placed on your payroll tax money if you do this. And you have the legal authority that has been previously granted to you from the legislature twice, in 03 and 09, that will allow you to raise the payroll tax rate each year through 2024. And that is the agency's intent. I'm sure you will do it. It's going to generate a significant amount of revenue, all dedicated to paying local share of this type of project. Okay, what if you don't do this? That money is still going to be there for you. It's fungible. It could address service cuts, it could address OPEB liability, it could address pension liability. What are the trade-offs? That's not in this report. So I'm just suggesting you need a much more nuanced discussion, and apparently you're having a retreat tomorrow. That would be a great opportunity to begin discussing these projects. When you adopt them, you are constraining future options. And I'd say, given the perilous financial position you're in now, you need maximum options. So I don't see a crisis here that suggests you need to say yes to this. I think it could be deferred. It could be discussed tomorrow. I think you need to start really looking at trade-offs for funds, CMAQ money, STP money. All that kind of stuff is fungible. You can swap it around. I really think there needs to be a discussion about that. Today's agenda is really packed, so it's not time to have those discussions. I just suggest you defer so you can be more informed and carry out your fiduciary responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And for 3 minutes exactly. All right. I'm looking for a motion from the board.
Motion approved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
When we communicate to our delegation down to the Federal Transit Administration or executives that come here, could we provide some emphasis on lost opportunity? There's no assurance that there will be a reauthorization. Presumably, history says that it will, but in the meantime, if it's smaller than we anticipate, if it's later than we anticipate, that lost opportunity is quantifiable, and I think that would inform them. We're just not asking for money, we're asking to create opportunities that are beneficial. And I don't know that we do that. I hope we do, but if we could do it even more, maybe as we have connections with delegation, congressional delegation, we could say this is why it's essential, this is what it will do.
We definitely make that message, as Rick and others would note, that that message was carried very strongly to the congressional delegation as well as federal officials that were here last week for Revolution. And we'd be happy to talk further with you, Board Member Clark, about that.
At this point, we're going to have a first reading of an ordinance that we Actually, it's an annual, an annual occasion to sync our self-employment tax upwards. State law, is that right? Brian, Safer?
Yeah, it connects state law to federal law on an annual basis. Ordinance number 314, an ordinance of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, TriMet, amending Chapter 14 of the TriMet Code to revise the definition of net earnings from self-employment. There's no action required.
Okay, great. Super. I think with that, we will close the board meeting and open our public forum.